This is
Up
for Grabs, a podcast where three unfiltered friends talk about anything and everything. And now, here are your hosts, Tracy, Kim, and Rachel.
Welcome to Up for Grabs. I'm Rachel. I'm here with my friend Tracy.
Hi.
Hi. And Kim.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to Up for Grabs. Today, we're going to go back to something that I know Tracy and Kim love dearly and know way more about than I do, which is true crime. My true crime kind of begins and ends with Dateline. I don't really listen to any podcasts like you guys do, but it's wildly, wildly popular. And so today we just wanted to kind of take a dive into why that might be and maybe resources that are available to people now that didn't used to be, that kind of get people into the true crime
Arena.
Thank you. It is an arena. So Tracy, take us into the arena.
Sure. And it's funny that you say that yours kind of begins and ends with Dateline, because I feel like that may have been just early true crime for a lot of us, most of us. I mean, I can remember very early on in my early 20s, you know, you would watch it. It would only be once a week.
Yep.
But you would watch it, and it was so interesting. There was Dateline and 48 Hours.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Unsolved Mysteries.
That's an OG. I mean, those are the
Yep.
three that really...
Cops.
Yeah.
Remember the show Cops?
Yeah.
Which, do you know that there's a Beech Grove
Yes.
police
Oh, yes.
live true cop thing? I don't know what it's called.
How embarrassing, but yes.
But, I mean, people literally just watching that, and then they got interested in it, and I feel like that was the early parts of it anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you could access it 24/7 like you can now.
There's not a dedicated network
No.
that there is now. ID
Yeah.
is...
Oh, I forgot about ID.
ID is the investigation discovery. I mean, it's an entire network. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So...
I have to write that down. I forgot about that one. What comes to mind right off the bat is Audio Chuck, which is based here in Indianapolis, a competition podcast.
God, you're so dumb.
I like to say
lots of
that.
because they are probably the most popular podcast out there, right?
Yes, they are.
In the podcast verse.
Absolutely. And they have so many shows.
Yes,
they
they
started
do.
off just like being crime junkies.
Yep.
And that was the big one. And it's a woman named Ashley Flowers and her friend that she grew up with named Britt. I don't know Britt's last name.
don't
She
know
always
either.
just goes by Britt. And they just talk about these cases. And they go on tour now. There are crime conventions. I mean, it is Rachel's making a face, but it is a whole world.
It's like a
that these people
subculture?
live in. Subculture,
Do
absolutely.
they have Crime Con? Like
Yes, they do.
Oh my God, do they?
I want to go. I want to go.
They
Well, where
do.
is it?
I think last year was in Nashville.
Yeah, they
I
have
don't
it in
know.
different cities. But Crime Junkies is going on tour. They, like you said, they have several podcasts under their umbrella.
Yep.
They have several investigators.
Are they all true crime?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
True crime, or sometimes they'll do seasonal things where they'll concentrate on scary stories or like
Yeah, there are some unsolved crimes, and others are ones that have been solved, but they tell the story.
Yeah.
Almost like an Edgar Allan Poe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes where it's
Yeah.
a tale that's being woven, and you're brought into it, and then it's whodunit kind of thing. But they have Crime Junkies. That's their main one. There's one called Solvable. I don't know. I think maybe that's where people work on the website to help figure that out. Counterclock. I've listened to that, but I'm not sure what that is. But all of these are like episodic things, so you're not learning it all in one sitting like you are on Dateline.
So yeah, the one like Counterclock, they will do a season, and it may take 2 years to get to that season, but it's one case that's usually unsolved, and that they will investigate thoroughly. Go to the town, interview the people, interview the family members, and Counterclock is one of those.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times it's just on, like you said, that you don't listen to it. It's in the background for me, and I feel like it can be in the background because it's so slowly paced
Yeah.
that you don't really miss anything if you go do something. You know, you rarely miss something.
Right.
And they rehash it coming back in. But I like that pace. I find comfort in that somehow. There's one called Park Predators, which makes
Oh, my
me
God.
never want to go to a park.
I have that on my. I've pulled up what I
What?
listen to. It's pretty good. It's yeah. So she talks about throughout the United States. She even does a few that are out of the country. Just something bad that happened in
Like-
a national park.
National parks or just city parks? Or
No,
think
it's a lot
national.
of it's more national.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It is Delia D'Ambro. I love her. She's aside from Ashley Flowers, she's one of the best ones that they have as far as doing.
Yes.
So
Her voice is almost like, who was the lady DJ back in like the 80s, 90s? Do you know what I'm talking about? She would do like Nightlight love songs.
oh gosh,
What was her name?
it wasn't Delilah, was it?
Delilah.
It is. She does have a Delilah voice.
Yes.
like a syndicated. Like
Yeah.
it's very soothing, even
Yeah.
because it's scary, terrible stuff. But she's really good at it.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I love
that you
her. And
knew
then
who it was.
Ashley Flowers does a separate one called The Deck, which I really love.
Yeah, The Deck Investigates.
The Deck investigates. And so in the police world, unsolved cases sometimes are given a card number, like the 8 of hearts or whatever, and they're kind of assigned in those categories. And so she'll pull out one of those and work with the cop and kind of in their unsolved and bring the case to light and just kind of put it out there again.
See if anybody has any new information.
Yeah. So, and I think that's what they're doing with this tour that they're going on. They're going to talk about one particular case. They're doing it a little different this time around. They haven't gone on tour since I think pre-COVID. And they're going to talk about one case with the audience and kind of see
Is it
how
a different case in each city? Or
I don't think so, but I
Okay.
can't be for sure on that. I think that they've kind of been advertising that they're going to discuss one case and try to see if they can get it solved.
Okay. And then that kind of rolls into social media. Do you follow any pages? I know, Rachel, you probably don't.
I don't.
Any true crime pages?
I think that what I follow is the podcast pages on
Okay.
social media. So no, I don't follow like any independent ones.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. The podcasts all have pages on social media,
So you
on their
kinda get to
different
know the people.
Facebook, Instagram, and you find different things on different pages. And what they will say during their podcast is, check out our Facebook page, and you can see images from the crime scene.
Oh, God.
Or whatever, like
Yeah, kinda get it
we have
based.
we have a map of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You can see where he got in the window. I don't know, like.
It gives you just more detailed information.
It does, but it draws you in because you're like, oh, I got to remember to go back and look at their website or their whatever.
So wait a minute. What are you talking? So I get that if I had a podcast about true crime, I'd have supporting social media. What are you talking about that isn't a podcast?
Oh, there are other pages that are not podcasts that are like, let me look and see if I can find a name of one really quickly, but they are people that are just on social media. A lot of them are trying to solve unsolved cases.
Like personal ones?
like amateur sleuths.
Some amateur sleuths. Sometimes they're personal ones. Sometimes they are people that, and I'm going to say nerds in their basement
Sure.
for lack of a
Sure.
better term. I'd like to just hurt some people's feelings and be insulting. But it's like that's just what they enjoy doing. So
Okay.
they will find a case that needs attention, and they will try to give it some attention. Did you watch the show Yellow Jackets that was on Netflix?
I didn't. No.
Well, there's a person in there, a character in this show, that she is part of a network of independent sleuths, and that's what they do in their free time. They don't go out. A lot of times, there are people that don't have a lot of social engagement. Probably murderers. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Someone's going to catch him soon.
Here's a good example. I follow a guy named Billy Jensen on Instagram, and he did some different podcasts, and he's done even some stuff on ID. And when the whole healthcare CEO getting assassinated happened, he was calling on his Instagram page, okay, sleuths, you need to get out there and you need to analyze these videos and you need to analyze. And I mean, I think they were part of the reason that they kind of ID'd where he was and because people had seen him and said, so that's what these people are doing all the time. They're on their, they're analyzing video after video after video. And I don't know. I mean, you have a lot of time on your hands to do that.
It just puts a
and
whole
go
lot
down
more
a rabbit hole of
feet on the street, eyes on the
Yes,
street,
yes.
when you open it up to the public.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder how you could ever get away with anything.
Exactly.
I don't know how anyone ever gets away with anything now. I mean, there are cameras everywhere.
Yep.
Almost, I mean, they're in people's dashboards.
Yeah.
They're in their front doors. Mm-hmm. They're on your street corner. You know, the police have them on some street corners. All the stores have them. Like, how am I supposed to get away with the crime now? That's what I want to know.
You should have been committing more crimes back in the 70s.
Yeah, I did the best I could. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so a couple of them, I'm just going to, sorry, I'm just having, my eyes are not wanting to adjust right now. WTHR Plus, WTHR 13 Plus on like the Roku app. I saw someone say, I'm like, what? They have a channel where you can watch live trials here in Indiana.
Well, who knew?
I know. Me now.
I didn't know that.
There's a Facebook page called Indiana's Missing and Unsolved Cases.
I've heard of that.
Well, that's good.
And obviously, if Indiana has it, then other states have it. Other communities have it. I have to say that when looking for sources for this page, for this podcast, I liked some pages so that I could see what was coming up on them. And I am very uncomfortable with the amount of missing people.
I know.
And it's not new. A lot of these people have been missing for a long time. I guess I just didn't realize how many people went missing.
I know. And so many people that maybe are in different, I want to say it politically correct, people that are forgotten.
Yeah.
You know,
marginalized
people that are probably the majority, you know, and that they just go unnoticed.
They go unnoticed, and the efforts just aren't there.
Yep.
And, but I mean, like so many people on these pages, you know, I just want to throw up this picture of my sister. She's been missing since 1978.
Oh my gosh.
She went, you know, missing at such and such, you know, park, whatever.
Yeah. It's just hard to wrap your head around
And I'm
that.
like, how are their bodies never found? Like, how are they,
I know.
how is it never solved? I don't understand.
But it does have to, it does make me feel a little bit better knowing that there is a platform in place to get word out that if somebody that I did know went missing, you know, not trying to solve a case from the 70s, but like someone like right now went missing, you feel like you, instead of just sitting back and giving the police a photo of them, that's really all you could do back in the day.
Yes.
And just trust that they were actually looking. I think I like the idea of these things in place to give people
A platform.
a platform, a sense of power, that they can do something to help. I don't know.
No, I agree. I mean, if there's a positive about social media or stuff, that's one of the positives is that you can get it out there.
Yeah.
There was an incident a couple of days ago, about a mile from my house. Someone was driving. They post on their own Facebook page a picture of the back of a van in front of them. Of course, it's a white van because it's always a white van.
No one does.
And this person said, I took this photo. They pulled out in traffic and I could not keep up, and I had my child in the car, so I couldn't follow them. I did call the police, but here's the license plate number of this van. And it appears that there is a child's hand reaching out like by the license plate.
Ooh, like in the trunk.
From like the back of the white van.
Ew.
And they said, so please keep your eye out. Within about 3 hours, that had gone to the community pages, and then it had more than 21,000 shares on social media within hours, because it was scary. I mean, to see it is scary. And people were kind of getting on the lady saying, how could you not follow them? And she's like, well, for one, I was waiting to turn. I was at a stop. It was a T right there where that Waterman building is. You know where I'm talking about? Anyway, she couldn't pull out in traffic, and she had her kid in the car. And what's she supposed to do?
Make a citizen's arrest?
And she did the right thing.
She did the right thing. She took a picture. She called the police. So there was an update the next morning. The police did update that they did find the owner of the van. They talked to them. They said it was he's been cleared. They said it was his wife was in the back of the van, and she was adjusting something, like the door was kind of coming open. It didn't shut all the way, and so she was trying to.
Does his wife's hand look like a
legitimate
baby?
picture then,
It was a legitimate picture of a small hand.
How little is his wife's hand?
Well, the female hand can look like a kid's hand. Not yours.
Not mine.
man hand.
Some can.
Man hands.
And I don't know. The whole thing was just so
That's
creepy
crazy.
when it happened in
That
real time,
is.
because I was like, what on earth is this? But then it was also kind of magnificent of how fast.
How fast it was.
I mean, there were people in the comments saying, my husband and I are going out looking when he gets home from work.
Oh my gosh.
They were just, but then you run into, vigilantes.
Yeah.
So there's so many angles to how all of this works out that it's pretty scary, pretty
Yeah.
incredible. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was a social media thing. Hold on, I don't want to get to that one yet. Okay, so there's Indiana Unsolved. Fox 59 does a
they do.
segment on the news, and then they also have a page. NAM US database. I don't know, but that's
AMUS.
database.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think that's a government database where you can access records and things because people are having access to things that they didn't have access to before. You would
like
watch
what?
shows where people would be like, go to the courthouse and ask to see the
my gosh.
the boxes of files for whatever case. And they would bring out 2 of those banker's boxes and, you have to keep them in this room, whatever. Well, now you can access a lot of it online.
Online, yeah.
So people, they're like researchers that they're just trying to find out whatever the missing piece is that someone missed out on. My case.
Yeah.
Not your personal case?
No, mycase.org or com. I don't know. My case.
That's when you want to check up on somebody that your kid's dating.
Oh, no, I don't know about this. My kids don't date anybody.
Okay, then
What?
neither do I.
You need to know it.
What?
Yeah.
What happens?
No, I mean it's an
You can see everything. You
What
can
do you
see
do?
if they've had a speeding ticket. You just put in their name
put
and
in
date
their
of
name.
birth.
Date of
My
birth.
case?
Yeah, my case.
and it just kind of shows any type of violations.
Any
as
arrests,
little as a
if
speeding
there's-
ticket, as big as a
Is this just in the state of Indiana, or is
I
this?
bet you every
This
state
is in
probably
Indiana, but I'm sure everyone has a version of it.
has. I know it's very common for like the younger generation to fact check people.
If they're talking to a guy from a dating app and they're going to meet up, they've been talking for a couple weeks, they might my case him. You can say it like that.
Wow. It's
And
my
then
case.
You like, oh,
Make
like
sure
there-
he's never been arrested for domestic violence.
I was going to say, there's that page, Are We Dating the Same Guy, Indianapolis, or whatever. Like every city has
crazy.
those. And
But there
a
are
girl
serial
will
daters out
always
there.
put up a guy and say, any info? And people are immediately like,
Yep.
blasting screenshots of his my case, domestic violence, arrested for whatever. And they're like, oh, thank you, saved me. Yes, we probably did. So maybe there'll be less missing people.
Wow.
Now, I do feel bad for people that have been rehabilitated and do better, and I hope that they give them a chance if there's something like that. But there you go.
Well, I don't want my kids to give them a chance.
I'm like, well, you have to think of like a
I agree.
speeding ticket or, I don't know, a DUI. I mean,
It happens.
it's a red flag, but it
It
happens.
is a red flag, but it's something to
but
talk about.
It
I mean,
is,
it's-
yes.
You know,
Hi, nice to meet you.
maybe not on the first drink. Maybe after the third. You should say, are we Ubering? Because I saw your record. There is the National Institutes of Justice. I don't know where those are, but
What?
it sounds very...
It does sound fancy.
But you could access these records again online. The Indiana State Police have on their website cold cases by county.
Now, wait, are they doing that in hopes that people that
Yes.
enjoy doing this will
You
hop
are
on and
welcome
help?
to go on and look. And there's not a lot of information there, but if you're interested, like what is a cold case? Maybe that's just there so that if my aunt went missing in 1986, I don't think that they've given up because it's on their website. I don't know the reasoning, but
But it's probably also, I would think that if I worked for law enforcement, the cases have to be stacking up.
Well, that's
people
what-
are
yeah.
people are dying to get in there. They're like constantly
Literally.
dying. No, but like, how can they possibly solve all those
No, they
things?
can't.
they can't.
Maybe
I
they
listened
would.
to a podcast called Going West, and it's a couple, a married couple, and they live in California. And a lot of what they do, they release 2 a week, so they are very busy with cold
Wow.
cases. But it's because the people like that get on those things will say, hey, so they rely on the average person to say, will you look into this case? Will you look into this case? So, I mean, that's a very good example of, I bet you a lot of these podcasts rely on, that's how they find a lot of their information, or, hey, maybe this is a case we could concentrate on. So it's good that it's out there.
Oh, it is good that it's out there. I don't understand how you don't listen to them, Rachel.
Lack of interest.
You get scared?
No,
you
I don't
listen
get
to
scared.
podcasts, though? Because that's a thing that
It's a thing.
it's hard to get used to.
I don't say I don't listen to any, but it's not my first. If I'm sitting around and I think, what should I do now? Listening to a podcast isn't the first couple of things I think of.
Yeah, and I think too it depends on your work environment or what you do. Like when you go to the gym,
Yeah,
do you want that in your ear when you're doing? You know what I mean? Like I clean houses. It's the
It's there.
perfect
It
opportunity
is.
to listen to. You know,
Right.
but
So at the gym, you prefer music?
I was listening to 70s disco today for the treadmill.
Okay.
Casey and the Sunshine Band, I'll tell you, hit after hit. Couldn't have walked faster. 10 out of 10.
All right. Why don't you try one of
I know
these next
I
time?
do,
I mean, like-
and it doesn't have to be necessarily
I
true
mean, it's
crime.
someone just
but
telling you a story.
I
and it's-
really find it. I really like it.
Well, I feel like I really should, since they are the competition,
That's
tune
right.
into Crime Junkies. Is
Crime
that right?
Junkies.
Crime
Yeah.
Junkies is you're going to start with any. That's a really good
I
one.
think it would be smart of me to know what I'm up against, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, and that kind of segues into when you bring up my Crime Junkies.
Yes.
They have, Ashley Flowers has a nonprofit called Season of Justice, and they fund cold case genetic testing.
That's awesome.
So it costs a lot of money to do genetic testing, apparently.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't, and it should be easier. And
Yeah.
I don't understand why it costs so much and why it's so hard, and how like some of these people they have their DNA and it's not. But whatever. So the story I brought to tell.
Yes.
Was a case from Indianapolis in 1975, and they solved it in this past year.
Who solved it?
Season of Justice.
Oh,
funded
through that. Okay.
Genetic testing, and with the help of several law enforcement agencies, because a couple were involved. So, okay, let me get back to the crime.
Okay.
It was 1975, and three teenage girls, 14, 11, and 14, were leaving a gas station, and they decided to catch a ride with a stranger. They hitchhiked.
What side of town was this?
They were on the east side.
Okay.
And they, and in 1975, people did
No,
hitchhike.
that was not abnormal.
I mean,
to do that.
did they know it wasn't the best idea? Probably. Were they told not to do it by their parents? Probably. Did people do it all the time? Yes. They did. So rather than walk to, and I don't know if it was a game or something they thought they were going to go to, they flagged down the station wagon, and this man drove past where he said that they were going to let him out. And they were like, hey, you missed our street kind of thing. And he was like, nope, had a gun. He ended up pulling over a cornfield area somewhere. He attacked all three of them. Would keep one at gun, one tied down, whatever. But they were beat up. They were assaulted sexually.
Ew.
And I think let me see if I wrote that down. He stabbed. That's what it was. He stabbed two of them. I don't know if he stabbed the third. I can't remember that part. But he left them all for dead in this field and left. I mean, it's crazy to think that somebody would pull over, grab three people.
In broad daylight?
Young kids.
That in broad daylight. That just doesn't happen, I don't think.
no.
Shouldn't.
But
But
two
in
of
1975 was
them,
probably a lot easier.
again, and people didn't. There weren't as many cars. Not as many people passed by. Everything was slower, and that's not a bad thing. But two of them were able to walk down the street, keep walking until someone saw them and picked them up. and they were able to go back for the third girl. So they all survived.
They
my
all
gosh.
survived.
All three survived the attack. Like they got ambulances. I mean, they were obviously all in the hospital. And
So he was bad at what he
he was
doing.
a very bad, yes,
Killer.
at that.
Yeah.
So it ends up, but it's still unsolved. Until
could
this
never
past
ID
year.
the
They
guy.
couldn't ID the guy. And through this Season of Justice grant for the genetic testing, Thomas Edward Williams was convicted by his familial DNA, and he died in prison in Texas in 1983. So
So he was already
he was way,
already
way
dead.
dead. Yeah, he'd been dead for
But they found it through their. Oh my gosh.
25 years. They had DNA on
Yeah.
things, and then they were able to piece it together that that's who it was.
Crazy that they still had the DNA saved from 1975.
And so these three girls also never gave up. They
That is
continued
amazing.
to go back to the police and say, have you found anything new? Is there anything new? Their families found something new. I did not know until this was solved, and that's why it made me immediately think of it. But a cousin of mine who grew up on the East Side was friends with these girls.
Oh.
And I saw her comment on somebody's post. You know how you can see other people's comments on social media? And it was one of these girls. And I was like, you forget how closely connected we all are.
I know.
And so sometimes it's like, oh, fun to hear these stories, or they're entertaining, or they're what I listen to when I'm on a treadmill. But that's your cousin's friend.
Yep.
That is somebody's daughter. That is,
Yep.
so then I think about the people that choose to spend their time helping. I don't know.
No, I
Well, to your point about just being way more connected than we think we are, would you like to tell the listeners about the last true crime podcast that we had and the person that you work with?
we talked about the Burger King.
Oh,
Burger
I
Chef.
was like, did somebody murder someone? Oh,
No.
yeah, Burger Chef.
A Burger Chef. God,
Yeah.
I keep saying King.
So someone I work with was like, oh, I listened to your podcast. Or he said, I'm going to listen to your podcast, and I know which one I'm going to start with. And I said, okay, which one? Thinking I'm clever. It could be any of them. And he's like, I'm going to start with the Burger Chef murders because I went to high school with one of those persons, and I was friends with them. And I was interviewed for the newspaper and all this. And I was like,
What?
What?
Like, that was 50 years ago.
We are so interconnected.
Interconnected.
And
Like,
you
this
only
is
work
someone-
with one man in your office.
Yes.
And
I've only worked with him for a couple months, so like it was just a
Yeah.
weird thing, and just happened one day to bring up that I did a podcast. You know what I mean? Like one of those weird things that you're like, okay.
And he
another
was friends with one of those
small
poor
world
people. And
connection.
And crazily, that's how a lot of these cases get solved.
Yes.
It's just when you bring these cases out of the woodwork, and I think that these podcasts are such a good platform for solving those kind of cases, and especially with the way that they do with DNA
Right.
and the familial DNA, like I don't know, and like having a grant like that. Some of these families, there's not resources, or the police force, they don't have the resources to do it. In these cases that have DNA, just sit and sit and sit.
well, like these three women,
I can't believe they all survived.
east side of
neither.
Indianapolis is, people don't have a lot of money on the east side of Indianapolis.
Yeah,
and I
it's a
don't think
poor
these
area,
three
yeah.
women look like they've come from any affluence.
Yeah, and the fact that they fought so hard to keep
They
that case
just kept
active.
going. Yeah, and the press conference, it was on the news when it happened, but they had several different police that had been on it, some for
Yeah.
years, like their entire career, that they had tried to follow it. But these women,
Yeah.
Ashley was there.
That
it
is
was
so neat.
it was pretty cool. And then the women were there, but
I just can't believe that if the DNA is there, like Kim
fact that
said,
it was still
the fact
there
that it was
and
still there,
good.
that law enforcement doesn't have enough money or resources just to go ahead and run it all.
yeah,
Why
Because
not?
the familial DNA is such a different, it's probably so much more complex.
yeah.
I guess it shouldn't be, but I guess that
I
it
just
is.
think I feel like computers do everything,
I know,
but then
that's
I'm
what I-
like, they really don't.
Somebody
Like, you
has to
think they
sit
do.
down. Somebody has to sit down, and it's almost like an engineering project,
Right.
And you have to because there's shows on ID about that specifically. There's this lady sleuth that's like, I don't even think that she's like has a PhD or anything, but she got into the familial DNA, and she helps solve cold cases just by her knowledge of how to work through all of it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. The people that really thrive on that, like attention to detail.
Yes.
Do you remember the guy? I don't know if it's a guy or girl, and I don't remember if it was on Instagram or TikTok, but it would be like a game they would play. They'd say, "Send me a picture, and I'll tell you where you are." And like people
Yes.
would send a picture, and they're like, "You're never gonna get this," and I'll be darned if through their investigating just on the internet and zooming in on different
Oh, it's creepy how.
they're like, and
You'll
they're like,
never
okay,
get me.
they're
And
like,
they're
give me an hour, and then they're like, okay, you're in such and such like weird place, Missouri, or something, and
Yes.
they're right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was on TikTok, and it is amazing.
I love it.
Unless you just live off the grid and you don't have a cell phone and you don't have a computer that would ping you somewhere, you're going to be found. I mean, nowadays, it'd be very, very hard.
I'm one of those weird rabbit holers that go down. When people are like,
Yeah, I mean, it's
you go and all of a sudden you're looking at someone's third cousin's wife,
I know.
sister's friend, whatever, and you're like, oh crap, did I just like that post accidentally? Like, did your finger slip? And you're like, I do it. They can't
Yeah.
know, whatever. Because I'm just nosy. I'd like to say there's a good reason for me to do my sleuthing, but there's
But
not.
thank God you are.
But it's not hurting anything. I mean, it's detrimental to anything
Yeah.
other than maybe your time, but I mean, I could do that if I mean, literally, I don't do, you're a very good sleuth.
Thank you.
I think that I can find a lot of information out, but the sleuthing I'm not as good at.
Well, I think the sleuthing has to do with, I was an English teacher.
Yeah.
I taught, composition and literature.
Yeah.
So I would follow it, but I taught research papers every year.
Yeah.
So, there are
have
steps
that,
in
you
research
just know what to
methodically
do.
that you're like, go to this, go to this, go to this,
Yeah. No, you're good at it.
Thanks.
Yeah, if I ever have a question about someone or something,
Oh, yeah. You're the person to call.
first person I call.
I am so nosy. I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Was there anything else about the case? So you said
No, that was it.
Okay.
That was, good on everybody who
Yeah, that is-
participated
that's
and got
amazing.
it fixed. So
Yeah, I will take you up on your challenge to at least listen to one or two
okay.
podcasts about true crime. I'll do it. I always am intrigued by them. They always suck me in, especially stuff that's unsolved. It makes me mad. Anything that's true, I find interesting. So I know I'll like
There's
it.
an art to it. It takes the right voice, like when we were talking about Delia D'Ambro.
Yes.
Love her. And Ashley Flowers, too. Her and Britt both. They just are really good. I don't know. It's weird. It's like they're really good at what they do. They keep you intrigued. It's a very soothing voice. I heard their podcasts aren't any longer than 45 minutes. They're
Right.
just very...
And it harkens back to like old time radio shows.
It really does. That's what I like
the
about
Invisible
it.
Man, that radio
You kind of
show,
visualize
like,
that's-
the 40s or 50s or
They
whatever.
don't have like sound effects, do they?
Oh, my God. Like on A Christmas Story.
No, they sometimes
when
kind
they
of
do the Cowboys and Indians shows.
Yes.
Or like the sheet of metal to make the
Delia does
thunderstorm.
from Park Predators. She
Yes.
has sound effects from the forest. She does.
Okay, that's funny.
But you're in your car and you're
But it
driving.
does. It keeps you in tune.
Yes.
There's-
We should start adding sound effects to our
I don't want to know what they are.
Yeah, hey, me neither.
Laugh track. Okay.
or the bling. Whatever we say, that's what she said.
I'll get
That
Rob.
would be a good one to have. Like we need a little like
Yeah,
you know
little
like
soundboard.
Soundboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang, bang. Oh yes.
I'll get Rob right on that. I love that. Right after he.
Could be our first expense of the year.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today on Up for Grabs. If you listen to any true crime podcasts or have other resources that we did not touch on that you would suggest, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will see you again soon.